They fired on a rescue convoy. Earth launched a full retaliation. The stars shimmered against the vast darkness of space as the 5 white ships moved in perfect formation. Each vessel bore the bright blue circle with a red cross, the ancient symbol of medical help that had survived humanity's journey to the stars. Commander Olivia Benson stood on the bridge of the leading ship, the Mercy. She watched the main screen as the red-orange globe of Proxima Centauri b grew larger. Her mission was simple but vital: deliver medical supplies and doctors to help the colonists and native aliens suffering from a mysterious illness. "Commander, all systems normal. We'll reach orbit in 20 minutes, said Lieutenant Gregory Mitchell from the pilot's seat. His fingers moved across the control panel with practiced ease. Olivia nodded. "Send the approach message again. Make sure they know we're coming to help." Alan Grant, the communications officer, pressed several buttons on his console. "Sending now, Commander. This is the 5th time we've announced ourselves. Still no response from the colony." Olivia frowned. The silence was strange. The distress call had been urgent. Thousands were sick, both human colonists and the peaceful Proximan natives. The colony didn't have enough doctors or medicine to fight the unknown disease. "Maybe their communication systems are down," said Dr. Clara Reed, the chief medical officer. She had joined Olivia on the bridge, too anxious to wait in the medical bay. "If the illness has spread quickly, they might not have enough healthy people to manage basic systems. That's why we're here," Olivia said, offering a reassuring smile. 1,200 medical personnel, tons of supplies, and the best equipment Earth could send. The 5 ships carried everything needed to set up field hospitals and research labs. They would find the cause of the illness and stop it. It was what humans did now. They helped. The wars of Earth's past had taught painful lessons about cooperation and compassion. "Commander," said Alan suddenly, his voice tight, "I'm picking up ships approaching from behind the moon." "Colony defense vessels?" asked Olivia. Alan shook his head. "No, these are bigger, military class, not matching any Proxima registry." "Put them on screen," ordered Olivia. The main display changed to show 3 dark angular ships moving quickly toward them. Their design was unmistakable: Orion Confederacy warships. "Why are Orion ships here?" Gregory wondered aloud. "Proxima isn't in their territory." "Open a channel," Olivia said. "Let them know who we are." Alan worked his controls. "Channel open." Olivia spoke clearly. "Attention Orion vessels. This is Commander Olivia Benson of the Earth Alliance medical frigate Mercy. We are leading a humanitarian mission to assist with the medical emergency on Proxima Centauri b. We are unarmed medical ships, protected under the Interstellar Aid Treaty." They waited. The Orion ships continued to approach. "No response, Commander," Alan said after a minute. "Send again, on all frequencies. Add our identification codes." As Alan repeated the message, Dr. Reed moved closer to Olivia. "The Orions have never been friendly, but they've always respected medical missions." Olivia nodded. The Orion Confederacy was known for their aggressive expansion and strict isolation policies, but even they followed certain rules. Medical ships were sacred, untouchable. "Commander," Gregory's voice cut through her thoughts. "They're charging weapons." "That's impossible," Olivia said, but the sensor readings were clear. "Broadcast our status again. Light up all external medical emblems at maximum brightness." The bright red crosses on the ship's hulls glowed intensely against the white background. "They're still coming," Gregory reported, his voice steady despite the danger. "Weapons hot." "Evasive maneuvers," ordered Olivia. "All ships scatter pattern Delta. Continue broadcasting our status." The medical ships weren't built for quick movements. They were large, stable platforms designed for comfort and medical work, not for dodging enemy fire. Alan's voice rose in panic. "Commander, they're locking weapons on us." "This is Earth Alliance Medical Convoy Echo 7, Alan shouted into the communication system. "We are unarmed relief vessels. Cease fire immediately." The first shot came without warning. A bright, beam of energy that cut through space and struck the smallest ship in their convoy. The vessel shuddered, its lights flickering. "Status of the Phoenix," Olivia demanded. "Hit to their engine section," reported the sensor officer. "They've lost power to levels 3 through 7, life support still functioning." Before Olivia could respond, more weapons fire erupted from the Orion ships. Precise, deliberate shots targeted engines and communication arrays. "They know exactly what they're shooting at," Gregory said, his voice cold with anger. "This isn't a mistake." The bridge rocked as the Mercy took a direct hit. Warning alarms blared. "Damage report," Olivia called out, steadying herself against her command chair. "Hull breach on deck 4. "Medical storage has been hit," came the response. "Fire suppression systems activated." Olivia made a quick decision. Send a distress call to Earth. Full data packet. Include sensor log showing the unprovoked attack. Alan worked frantically at his station. "Transmitting now." Another hit rocked the ship. The lights on the bridge dimmed momentarily. "Commander," Gregory said, "at this rate, none of us will survive to reach Proxima." Olivia knew he was right. Her crew, doctors, nurses, and support staff were not soldiers. The ships carried bandages and medicine, not weapons and shields. "Order all hands to evacuation stations," she said, her voice firm despite the fear gripping her chest. "Launch all escape pods on my mark." As her crew rushed to obey, Olivia opened the ship-wide communication channel. "This is Commander Benson. The Orion vessels have launched an unprovoked attack on our medical convoy. All personnel proceed to escape pods immediately." "This is not a drill." The ship shuddered again as another blast struck near the bridge. "Earth has received our transmission," Alan reported. "They know what's happening here." Olivia nodded grimly. "Launch all escape pods. Head for Proxima's surface if possible." As the small pods ejected from the 5 medical ships, the Orion vessels continued their attack. To Olivia's horror, they began targeting the escape pods themselves. "They're shooting at the pods," whispered Dr. Reed in disbelief. "Why would they do this?" Olivia had no answer. She watched as Gregory finished the final transmission to Earth, complete sensor data showing the deliberate nature of the attack. "Escape pod ready, Commander," Gregory said, gesturing to the small hatch near the rear of the bridge. The last thing Olivia saw before entering the pod was the main screen showing 2 of the medical ships breaking apart, their white hulls torn. Open to the vacuum of space, the red crosses still glowing against the destruction. As her pod launched into space, Olivia knew one thing with certainty. Earth would not let this attack go unanswered. The Orion Confederacy had just made the worst mistake in their history. They had fired on a rescue convoy, and Earth would retaliate. They fired on a rescue convoy. Earth launched a full retaliation. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the air system. 12 people sat around the large table, their eyes fixed on the screen on the wall. The video showed the destruction of the medical ships. It ended with the image of escape pods being deliberately targeted by the Orion vessels. Admiral Kate Winters stood up slowly. Her gray uniform was perfectly pressed, but her face showed the strain of what she had just watched. "Play it again," she said, "the part where they acknowledge our transmission." A technician nodded and tapped at his tablet. The screen changed to show a communication log. A clear response from the Orion ships appeared. "Earth Alliance Medical Convoy Echo 7, your identification has been verified. Proceed to coordinates." "There it is," said Defense Secretary Paul Richards. "They knew exactly who they were firing on. They verified our ship's identity before the attack." President Samantha Ellis watched from the head of the table. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and eyes that missed nothing. "How many survivors?" 89 confirmed so far, Admiral Winters replied. "Out of 1,200 personnel. We're still searching, but..." She didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone knew the chances of finding more survivors were slim. "The Orions claim it was a mistake," said Foreign Minister Ben Wilson. "They say they thought our ships were military vessels disguised as medical transports." Admiral Winters pointed to the screen. "The logs show they verified our identity. The Attack happened 23 minutes after that verification. This was no mistake. President Ellis stood up. Everyone at the table fell completely silent. "I've heard enough," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. "The Orion Confederacy has violated every principle of interstellar law. They've deliberately attacked clearly marked medical vessels on a humanitarian mission." She turned to Admiral Winters. "What kind of response can we mount?" The Admiral touched her tablet and the screen changed to show Earth's military assets. "The primary fleet can be ready in 72 hours. We have 5 carriers, 20 destroyers, and support vessels. The ships we mothballed after the Mars Accords can be brought back into service within 2 weeks." "Do it," said President Ellis. "Call up the reserves. Reactivate the mothballed ships." Defense Secretary Richards looked surprised. "Madam President, that would be our entire military force. We haven't deployed at that level since before the alliance was formed." "I'm aware of that, Paul," the President replied. "The Orions didn't just attack our ships. They attacked the very principles that define humanity. They deliberately targeted medical personnel who were coming to help both human colonists and Proximan natives." She looked around the table. This wasn't just an act of war. It was mass murder. Foreign Minister Wilson cleared his throat. "What about diplomatic options? We could take this to the Interstellar Council." "We will," President Ellis said. "But we'll do it with our fleet at full readiness. The evidence will be presented to the Council, but the Orions need to understand there are consequences for what they've done." Admiral Winters nodded. "I'll begin preparations immediately." As the meeting ended, President Ellis asked Admiral Winters to stay behind. When they were alone, the President's formal demeanor softened slightly. "Kate, I'm putting you in command of the response fleet," she said. Admiral Winters stood straighter. "Yes, Madam President. I'm not looking for the destruction of the Orion Confederacy," President Ellis continued. "I want justice for our people, and I want to make sure this never happens again." "Understood," the Admiral replied. "What are the rules of engagement?" "Neutralize their military capacity," the President said, "but minimize civilian casualties. We are not them." 3 hours later, President Ellis addressed the United Nations of Earth. Her image was broadcast to screens around the world and to colonies across the solar system. "Citizens of Earth," she began. 24 hours ago, an unthinkable act occurred. 5 unarmed medical ships responding to a call for help from the Proxima Centauri colony were attacked without provocation by Orion Confederacy warships. She paused, letting the information sink in. The ships were clearly marked with the universal medical symbol. They broadcasted their identity and peaceful intentions. The Orion forces acknowledged their status as medical vessels before opening fire. Images appeared beside her. The medical ships with their bright red crosses, the communication logs, the escape pods being targeted. Of the 1,200 doctors, nurses, and crew members on that mission of mercy, only 89 have survived. The Orion Confederacy claims this was a mistake, but the evidence is clear. This was a deliberate act. The President's voice remained steady, but her eyes showed her anger. "For 2 centuries, humanity has worked to build a better universe. We've made peace among ourselves. We've reached out to other species with open hands. We've sent aid to any who needed it, including the Orions when their moon colony suffered an environmental disaster 30 years ago." She leaned forward slightly. "But make no mistake, our commitment to peace does not mean we will accept acts of barbarism. Our dedication to helping others does not make us weak." The screens now showed Earth's orbital shipyards, where vessels were being prepared for action. "I have ordered the full mobilization of Earth's defense forces. We will present our evidence to the Interstellar Council, but we will also ensure that those responsible for this attack face justice." Her voice grew stronger. "The attack on our medical convoy was not just an attack on those brave men and women. It was an attack on the very principles that define humanity. Our response will be swift, decisive, and unmistakable." Across Earth, military reserves received their activation notices. Major Frank Daniels was having dinner with his family when his communication device beeped. Captain Nicole Watson was teaching a university class. Lieutenant Kevin Foster was hiking in the mountains. All across the planet, Men and women who had once served in Earth's military prepared to return to duty. In the orbital shipyards around Luna, ships that had been dormant for years were brought back to life. Engineers worked around the clock to prepare vessels that hadn't seen service since the formation of the Earth Alliance. On military bases around the solar system, soldiers trained and prepared. Many had never expected to see actual combat. The Earth had been at peace for so long that war seemed like a distant memory, something from history books rather than a current reality. But the images from the destroyed medical convoy changed everything. This wasn't a political disagreement or a territorial dispute. It was an attack on the fundamental values of humanity: compassion, mercy, and the duty to help those in need. As Admiral Winters boarded her flagship, she received a message from one of the survivors of the medical convoy, Dr. Clara Reed. "Make them understand." The message read, "We went there to heal." The Admiral tucked the message into her pocket. She would keep it with her throughout the mission ahead. The largest fleet Earth had assembled in a generation prepared to leave orbit. Their mission wasn't conquest or revenge, it was justice. They fired on a rescue convoy. Earth launched a full retaliation. The Orion homeworld was celebrating. Military parades filled the streets of the capital city. Soldiers marched in perfect rows while aircraft flew overhead in tight formations. Giant screens showed images of the destroyed Earth medical ships, but the footage had been changed. In this version, the Earth ships fired first, and the Orion vessels were simply defending themselves. Most Orion citizens accepted what they were shown. Their government had always controlled what information they received, but some had doubts. The edited footage didn't look right to everyone. Questions were whispered in private homes, away from listening devices. Meanwhile, deep in Orion space, Chief Intelligence Officer Dominic Rivera moved carefully through the shadows of a busy spaceport. He looked like any other Orion worker in his stolen uniform. No one would guess he was human. Dominic was part of the advance team sent ahead of Earth's fleet. His job was to gather information and make contact with Orions who opposed their government. It was dangerous work. If caught, he would be executed as a spy. He entered a small bar near the edge of the spaceport and sat at a corner table. 3 minutes later, an Orion woman joined him. She had the typical blue-tinted skin of her species, but her eyes held something most Orions lacked: doubt about her government. "The edited footage is too obvious," she said quietly. "More people are questioning it than the leadership realizes." Dominic nodded. "We need to know about their defenses at Sigma Station." The woman slid a small data chip across the table. "It's all here: security codes, patrol schedules, weak points in their shields." "Why are you helping us?" Dominic asked. "Because I was a doctor before I was forced into military service," she replied. "What they did to your medical ships was wrong. Many of us know this." Across Orion space, similar meetings were happening. Earth's intelligence agents discovered that not all Orions supported their military government. Many were horrified by the attack on unarmed medical ships. 3 weeks after the convoy attack, Admiral Winters stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Justice. Earth's fleet had arrived at their first target, Sigma Station. The massive space station served as the Orion Confederacy's military headquarters and main research facility. "Status report," Admiral Winters ordered. "All ships in position," replied Captain Jason Boyd. "The Orions haven't detected us yet. Our stealth systems are working." Admiral Winters studied the station on the main screen. It was shaped like a giant wheel with 8 spokes connecting to a central hub. Weapons emplacements dotted its surface. "According to our intelligence, most of the station is devoted to weapons research," said Intelligence Officer Lisa Foster. "The central hub contains their command center." Admiral Winters nodded. "Standard procedure would be to demand their surrender before attacking." The bridge crew looked at her expectantly. "But we're not following standard procedure today," she continued. Her voice was calm but firm. "They showed no mercy to our medical ships. They gave no warning before firing." She turned to her weapons officer. "Target their weapons arrays and engine cores. Avoid life support systems and civilian quarters." "Yes, Admiral," the officer replied. "Targets locked." Admiral Winters took a deep breath. All ships open fire. The Earth fleet attacked simultaneously. Bright beams of energy shot from multiple ships, striking the station with surgical precision. The Orion defenses caught completely. By surprise, had no time to respond. On the station, alarms blared as systems failed. Orion officers rushed to battle stations, but many of their weapons were already disabled. First wave complete, reported the weapons officer. 80% of their defensive capabilities neutralized. Launch boarding teams, ordered Admiral Winters. Secure the command center and all data storage areas. Commander Eric Bennett led the first wave of boarding parties. His teams wore the new combat armor developed after the Mars Accords, lightweight but stronger than anything used in previous conflicts. Remember your orders, he told his soldiers as their ships approached the damaged station. We're here for the command staff and their research data. Minimize casualties among regular personnel. The boarding ships attached to the station's docking ports. When the Orions refused to open the airlocks, Earth forces cut through. The fighting inside the station was brief but intense. The Orion soldiers fought hard, but they were outmatched by Earth's forces. Within 2 hours, the central command hub was secured. Commander Bennett found the station's top officers trying to delete computer files. Stop what you're doing, he ordered, his weapon raised. Step away from the consoles. The Orion commander turned slowly. He was tall, even for his species, with the enhanced muscle structure of their warrior caste. You've violated Orion space, he said. This is an act of war. No, replied Commander Bennett. The act of war was firing on our medical convoy. We're just responding. While some teams secured prisoners, others worked to recover data from the station's computers. What they found shocked even the hardened Earth soldiers. Lieutenant Zoe Parker was the first to discover the truth. As a biologist assigned to the boarding team, her job was to examine any biological research. Admiral, she reported via comm. Link, I found files about the illness on Proxima Centauri b. It wasn't natural. The Orions created it and released it deliberately. Admiral Winters frowned. Are you certain? Yes, Admiral. They engineered a pathogen specifically designed to affect both humans and Proximans. They wanted to see how it would spread and how effective it was. That explains why they attacked our medical ships, said Captain Boyd. They didn't want us to discover what they'd done. But there was worse news to come. As Earth forces dug deeper into the Orion files, they discovered plans for a much larger attack using the same biological weapons. They were planning to release these pathogens on Earth itself, Lieutenant Parker reported, her voice shaking slightly. The Proxima outbreak was just a test run. Admiral Winters called an emergency meeting with her senior officers. The information they had discovered changed everything about their mission. This is no longer just about justice for our medical teams, she told them. This is about the survival of our species. The Orion leadership was planning biological warfare against Earth on a scale that could have killed billions. What are your orders, Admiral? Asked Captain Boyd. Admiral Winters thought carefully before answering. We continue as planned, but with a new focus. We need to find all research related to these biological weapons and make sure they're destroyed. And we need to capture everyone involved in creating them. As Earth forces secured Sigma Station, news of what they had discovered spread to other Orion worlds. Many Orion citizens, already questioning their government's version of events, were horrified to learn what had been planned. On 3 Orion colony worlds, citizens took to the streets in protest. On another, military units refused orders to fight against Earth forces. What had begun as Earth's response to an attack on a medical convoy was becoming something more, a reckoning for the Orion leadership and a turning point for their entire society. They fired on a rescue convoy. Earth launched a full retaliation. The news about the biological weapons changed everything. What had started as a mission to bring justice for the attack on the medical convoy was now a fight for humanity's survival. Earth's leaders met in an emergency session to discuss this new information. The evidence is clear, said Captain Heather Martinez as she presented the findings to the Alliance Council. The Orion leadership created a disease to affect both humans and Proximans. They released it on the colony, waited for us to send help, then destroyed our medical ships to cover their tracks. Images from the recovered data files appeared on the large screen. They showed Orion scientists working with biological samples and test results from early experiments. This was a test run, Lieutenant Zoe Parker added. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly as she pointed to charts showing the spread of the disease. They were planning a full-scale biological attack on Earth itself. If they had succeeded, billions would have died. President Ellis looked at the faces around the table. Some showed shock, others anger, but all showed determination. We need to change our approach, she said. This is no longer just about making the Orions pay for what they did to our medical ships. We need to find all their biological research facilities and destroy them. Admiral Winters, joining by video link from her flagship, nodded. We've already begun. Based on the data we found at Sigma Station, we've identified 3 research bases where this work was being done. What about the Orion people? Asked Foreign Minister Wilson. Are they supporting this plan by their leaders? This time it was Dominic Rivera who answered. The intelligence officer had returned from Orion space with valuable information. Many Orions don't know what their leadership was planning, he said. Those who have learned the truth are horrified. Some military units have already refused to fight against us. There are protests on several Orion worlds. As Earth forces pushed deeper into Orion territory, they encountered something unexpected. Help from the Orions themselves. Information about hidden bases came from Orion citizens. Warning about traps and ambushes allowed Earth ships to avoid danger. On the planet Orion Prime, a group of scientists contacted Earth forces secretly. They provided details about how to neutralize the biological weapon safely. On 3 Orion colonies, local governments declared they would not oppose Earth's fleet. The turning point came at a place called Rigel Pass. It was a narrow region of space where ships had to travel slowly due to strong gravitational forces from nearby stars. The main Orion fleet waited there, planning to ambush Earth's forces. Commodore Lawrence Turner led the Earth squadron that approached Rigel Pass. His ships were outnumbered 3-1. Sensors show 35 Orion warships waiting on the other side of the pass, reported his sensor officer. Commodore Turner studied the tactical display. The situation looked bad. The Orion fleet was larger and held the better position. We could wait for reinforcements, suggested his second-in-command. Turner shook his head. No, they'd just bring in more ships too. We need to face them now. He turned to his communications officer. Send this message to all ships. We fight with precision and restraint. Target weapons and engines only. These Orion crews may not support what their leaders have done. The Earth ships moved into the pass, weapons ready. The Orion fleet waited, their weapons charged. The battle seemed inevitable. But then something unexpected happened. 3 Orion cruisers suddenly turned their weapons toward their own command. Ship, what's happening? Turner asked, watching the display in confusion. His communications officer listened to incoming transmissions, then looked up in surprise. Sir, those 3 Orion ships they're mutinying. They're demanding their fleet commander stand down. More Orion ships began to change position, moving away from the Earth squadron and training their weapons on other Orion vessels. Confusion spread through the Orion fleet as commanders didn't know which crews they could trust. Taking advantage of the chaos, Commodore Turner ordered his ships forward. They targeted the weapons and engines of Orion ships still showing hostile intent, disabling them without destroying them. Within an hour, the battle was over with minimal casualties on both sides. The majority of the Orion fleet had surrendered or switched sides. Fleet Captain Jack Rivera established communication with the rebel Orion vessels. On his view screen appeared an Orion officer named Thelkar. Why did you help us? Rivera asked. Thelkar's expression was solemn. Because our leaders lied to us. They told us Earth was preparing to attack us. They said the medical ships were actually carrying weapons. The Orion paused, clearly emotional. When we learned the truth, that our leaders had created a disease to test on innocent people, that they had fired on ships bringing medical help, that they planned to kill billions on Earth, we could not follow them anymore. Thelkar explained. Further, Our military leadership seized power 10 years ago. They've been planning this war ever since. Most of our people never wanted this fight. As news of what happened at Rigel Pass spread, more Orion military units and colony governments declared they would not support their central government. Some openly joined Earth's forces, providing intelligence and assistance. On Earth, Admiral Kate Winters' second-in-command presented this news to President Ellis. It's becoming less a war against the Orion people and more a campaign against their military leadership, he explained. Many Orions are helping us now. President Ellis nodded, thoughtfully. Make sure all our forces understand this. We want justice for our murdered medical personnel. We need to eliminate the biological threat, but we don't want to destroy the Orion civilization. New orders went out to all Earth forces. Work with cooperative Orions. Focus on capturing the leadership responsible for the attack and the biological weapons program. Minimize harm to Orion civilians and to military personnel who surrender. The Earth fleet, now joined by Orion ships that had switched sides, approached the Orion homeworld. Their target was not the planet itself, but the secure bunker where the Orion Military Council had taken refuge. Admiral Winters addressed the combined human and Orion forces before the final operation. "Remember why we're here?" she said. "We're here because they fired on people who came to give medical aid. We're here because they developed weapons to kill billions. But we're also here to help the Orion people free themselves from leaders who don't represent their values." The greatest test of humanity's restraint and determination was about to begin. The final assault on the Orion leadership was hours away. They fired on a rescue convoy. Earth launched a full retaliation. 6 months had passed since the attack on the medical convoy. Earth forces, working alongside Orion rebels, had surrounded the heavily fortified bunker where the Orion Military Council had taken refuge. The massive underground complex was built into a mountain on a small moon, orbiting the Orion homeworld. Colonel Sofia Martinez stood with her assault team, checking her equipment one last time. Her sister had been a doctor on the medical frigate Mercy. She had not survived the attack. "Are you ready for this?" asked Lieutenant Ryan Cooper, her second-in-command. Sophia nodded. "I've been ready for 6 months." Admiral Winters' voice came through their communication devices. "All teams, this is Admiral Winters. Remember our objective. We want the Military Council alive to face justice. Minimize all other casualties." The assault began with precision strikes on the bunker's external defenses. Earth ships used carefully targeted weapons to disable communication arrays and weapon emplacements without causing the mountain to collapse. Then the ground teams moved in. Sophia led her squad through a maintenance tunnel that Orion rebels had told them about. The tunnel was narrow and dark, forcing them to move in single file. "Security system ahead," warned Ryan, looking at his scanner. "But it's already disabled." Sophia frowned. "Disabled? Did another team get here first?" They moved cautiously forward, weapons ready. When they reached the first security checkpoint, they found something unexpected. The Orion guards were already in restraints, secured by their own people. An Orion in a security uniform approached them, hands raised to show he was not a threat. "Colonel Martinez, I am Sub-Commander Kelvor. My team has secured this section." "Your team?" Sophia asked, suspicious. "Yes. We are part of the security force for this facility, but we no longer follow the Military Council. When we learned what they had done, many of us turned against them. Similar reports came in from other entry points. Throughout the bunker, many Orion security forces had turned against their leaders. What Earth forces had expected to be a difficult battle was becoming something entirely different. Admiral Winters, monitoring the situation from her command ship, made a quick decision. "All teams, continue forward, but be aware that some Orion forces inside are now allies. Verify before engaging." Sophia's team moved deeper into the bunker, guided by Kelvor. They encountered some resistance from soldiers still loyal to the Military Council, but these were quickly subdued with minimal casualties. Finally, they reached the central command center. The massive doors were sealed. "This is where the Council is hiding," said Kelvor. The doors can withstand heavy weapons. Sophia studied the doors. Can you open them from this side? Kelvor shook his head. They've changed the access codes. It would take hours to break through. Sophia was about to call for equipment to breach the doors when a voice spoke from a nearby communication panel. Attention Earth forces. This is General Thelkar of the Orion Defense Force. I am inside the command center with the military council. They are secure and in restraints. We await your arrival. Sophia exchanged surprised looks with her team. Can you open the doors? General? Stand by, came the reply. A moment later, the massive doors began to slide open. Sophia and her team raised their weapons, ready for a trap, but when the doors fully opened, they saw something they had not expected. The 7 members of the Orion Military Council were sitting on the floor, their hands bound behind their backs. Standing guard over them were Orion officers, their weapons pointed at their former leaders. General Thelkar stepped forward. He was tall, even for an Orion, with deep blue skin and the ceremonial markings of a high-ranking military officer. Colonel Martinez, he said with a formal bow. The architects of the attack on your medical ships are now in your custody. Sophia lowered her weapon slowly. You took them prisoner yourself? Thelkar nodded. When the evidence of their crimes became known to us, we could not allow them to continue leading our people. They betrayed everything the Orion Confederacy should stand for. Supreme Commander Vexkal, the head of the military council, looked up with hatred in his eyes. Traitors, he spat. You've doomed our species by siding with the humans. Thelkar looked down at his former leader. No. You doomed us when you ordered attacks on those who came to give medical aid. You doomed us when you developed weapons to kill billions of innocent people. Within hours, all members of the military council were transferred to Earth ships. They would be taken to stand trial before an interstellar tribunal with judges from multiple species, including both humans and Orions. 1 week later, Supreme Commander Vexkal stood in the courtroom on a neutral space station. Representatives from 20 species had gathered to witness the proceedings. The evidence was overwhelming. The engineered disease, the deliberate targeting of medical ships, the planned genocide against Earth. Records recovered from the bunker showed years of preparation, all authorized by Vexkal himself. We believed humans were weak, Vexkal told the court during his testimony. Your dedication to helping others, even your enemies, seemed like a fatal flaw we could exploit. We were wrong. The tribunal sentenced Vexkal and the other council members to life imprisonment on a maximum security prison asteroid. They would spend the rest of their lives thinking about their crimes. On Earth, memorials were established for the medical personnel lost in the attack. The largest was built at the Earth Alliance Medical Academy. It featured a holographic display showing each ship and crew member with a simple inscription, "They went to heal. Their legacy brought peace." 1 month after the trial, President Ellis addressed the rebuilt Earth Alliance Council. Representatives from the new Orion civilian government were present as honored guests. From an act of unconscionable cruelty came understanding, President Ellis said. The Orion people have overthrown their military dictatorship. Their new civilian government has requested membership in our alliance. She looked at the Orion representatives. They have seen that true strength lies not in brutality, but in compassion tempered with justice. Admiral Winters, who had led the Retribution Fleet, was appointed as liaison to the new Orion government. Her first official act was to establish a joint medical research facility in the Proxima system, staffed by both human and Orion scientists, dedicated to curing diseases rather than creating them. At the opening ceremony for the new Proxima Medical Center, Dr. Megan Benson, sister of Commander Olivia Benson, who had led the original ill-fated Convoy, cut the ribbon. My sister and her crew came to this system to heal, she said to the assembled crowd of humans, Orions, and Proximans. They were killed for their compassion, but their spirit lives on in this facility, where former enemies now work together to save lives. The final ships of Earth's fleet returned home to a changed galaxy. Humanity had proven that while they would not strike first, their retaliation when provoked would be absolute, yet always guided by principle rather than vengeance. As Dr. Benson later wrote in her memoir, they fired on a rescue convoy. Earth launched a full retaliation. But our greatest victory wasn't won through firepower. It was won by remaining true to our humanity, even in our darkest hour.